FaZe were in the news. Now, I don't know if you remember, FaZe Clan faced substantial doubt it can survive 5 months after going public. Now, you'll remember last time I did a stream, back in those halcyon days of 2022, we had FaZe Rain, not the Counter-Strike player, but one of the original, members, Northern Shat. He was talking about how he was going to expose FaZe, and he wasn't clear on what he meant, but it was intimated that he was owed money, that they had fucked him over in some way, that there was going to be a big reveal that he, in his words, would make people want to kill him to shut him up and not tell the truth, which I'm gonna assume is hyperbole. But they went public. They traded. If you remember, it was a big deal. They had Snoop, didn't they, at the Super Bowl? He was wearing FaZe on his thing, and they announced him as a brand ambassador, and everyone was like, oh my God, like, FaZe are huge. They had $1 billion valuation, right? You remember that? $1 billion for FaZe. The first ever $1 billion esports org, eclipsing TSM and everything else that had gone before. And then you fast forward a few months after they floated on the fucking, stock exchange. And now, because they have to disclose, this is the thing, when you go public, you have to disclose. You can't lie anymore. Because if you do, you go to jail. Or certainly you get massive fines. You can't mislead your shareholders and your investors. So they've had to tell the truth, and it's there in black and white. They're saying, actually, now we're fucked. We're really not making any money. So I wanted to talk about that because I think it's hilarious that everyone is so big on esports and how successful it is, and oh my God, it's the new sports, right? The most successful and highly valued esports org could go bust next year because no one makes any money on this garbage because everyone is incompetent and everyone is a liar. And I couldn't be happier. Oh, I'll be toasting marshmallows on the flames. Oh, I don't care. But Richard, what if it means you were to be unemployed? I'll take it. I'll be in a box, sleeping on a fucking FaZe jersey that someone donated to me, laughing my ass off. I will not give a fuck, guys. Destroy this shit. Burn it all down. It is a dumpster fire. We've been lying about our numbers and how much fucking money we make for so long. It's become second nature. And those chickens have to come back home to roost at some point. Have to. So let's do it. When Snoop Dogg stalked the stage at the I love articles like this, by the way. You gotta love it, right? When Snoop Dogg stalked the stage at the 2022 Super Bowl halftime show wearing a FaZe Clan branded gold chain, it marked an important moment for the esports organization turned lifestyle brand that fancies itself the paragon of youth culture. FaZe Clan had arrived. The jewelry was a signal Snoop had become a FaZe Clan member. I made a joke at the time. It was so good, and it didn't even go viral. I said it's not the first criminal enterprise he's been a member of. It was so good. How the fuck did that not go viral? It was such a great... you fucking wasted on you. Wasted. Anyway, joining the ranks of professional gamers, online content creators, and other celebrities like Lil Yachty, Kyler Murray, and Bronny James, who make up the ultimate aspirational cool kid. I don't know who any of these people are. Fuck that. I'm glad I know. FaZe's calling card is its ability to partner with these talents to push both competitive esports and casual gaming further into the mainstream, whether it be at the Super Bowl, on the cover of Sports Illustrated, or at buzzy parties. Not to be confused with bussy parties, by the way. Don't get your parties mixed up. At the company's Los Angeles headquarters, FaZe has worked hard to build the reputation, but getting Snoop Dogg to join the club didn't come cheap. For the use of his likeness and reputation, FaZe agreed to give him $1.9 million in stock and a spot on the company's board of directors, plus $248,000 worth of stock, each to his son and companies controlled by his spouse and his manager. I mean, the funny thing is, you're like, oh, he's got the bag there. Well, it's stock, as you're about to see. You can wipe your ass on that. But, like, to have him come out, this is how mental FaZe are. This is like, I'm always hearing about how FaZe are these fucking marketing geniuses, and they thought this deal was worth it. No one would have even noticed the chain if it wasn't for all the fucking people already in FaZe going, Snoop's wearing the chain. Do you think anybody watching the halftime Super Bowl show that have been touted as being one of the biggest and best halftime Super Bowl shows of all time, everyone was hyped, we're going to see Dre back, we even got surprise 50, yeah, he was a bit fatter than usual, but he was also hanging upside down, and he got back in the gym, and now he's looking good again, we got surprise 50, didn't we? We had Eminem there, we had them all there, Mary J. Blige, all the great, like, did anybody who was just there to watch that, like, or just tuned, oh wow, it's great, they haven't lost a beat, man, look at Dre, he's definitely not been banging HGH. Do you think anybody was going, oh, look at that sick chain. Look at that sick chain Snoop's wearing. I wonder what that F stands for. Do you think anyone, what a fucking joke. Like, what a joke that they paid that much for that. It is so mental. Anyway, the stocks will fully vest when their initial 2-year partnership ends in early 2024. Snoop Dogg's representatives didn't respond to requests for comment a bit, and they're like, how the fuck can I get this stock sold quick? As it is for other esports businesses, finding a way to translate internet clout into a legitimate business has been the fundamental challenge for FaZe, which makes money through esports winnings, revenue splits with its talent, and brand partnerships with companies like McDonald's and DoorDash. Pressure mounted when the company decided to go public in an SPAC merger with B. Riley Principal 150 in July. Since debuting on the NASDAQ, FaZe's stock has gone on a bumpy ride that nonetheless kept it above the debut price of $10 for months. So when the stock launched, guys, a share was worth $10. It was slightly over $10, I think, when it debuted. And then shares peaked at $20 a share in August. $20.08 a share. Over double. Fucking hell. To the moon. Paying off on its boasts of becoming the first esports organisation with a $1 billion valuation well into late September. Then a September 26th regulatory filing revealed that approximately $71.4 million of a $100 million PIPE investment being used to fund operations had defaulted and would need to be covered by B. Riley. In other words, they took in a bunch of money via an investment, right? And they'd already assigned that money to fund the org, and then it defaulted, i.e. they're not getting the money now, but whoopsie doodle, we've already kind of spent that money, and we really need that money. And so the people they floated on the NASDAQ with, their partners, they said, don't worry, we'll cover it. I guess that's not a great look. Okay? Right? News also broke that 92% of SPAC shareholders had chosen to redeem their shares for cash during the merger rather than convert them to the new FaZe common stock, draining almost $159 million from the company's trust account. And so again, what they were supposed to do, you're given your shares at launch, and then you are basically meant to like say, oh, it's wicked having these shares, yeah, right? Because there's like a period where you've got to hold them. You can't just sell them immediately if you're like in the first bunch of shareholders. But instead of converting them into what's called common stock, they decided, fuck this, I'm getting out while the going's good. I'm getting some money for my shares. And they fucking sold them, and 92% of people did this at once. It wasn't gradual. It was like, yep, all the headlines, you know, and everything else. So, yeah, anyway. So $159 million just went out from the company's trust account. And this obviously has the snowball effect. Now, oh shit, if people are cashing out, the shares can't be worth much. So, share price plummeted. In a little over a week, FaZe shares went from $14.75 to under $5, falling further to $1.78 at one point in November after the release of the company's third quarter financial results. Wow. Remember, over $20 a share in August. By November, what? Not even $2. And by the way, it's less now. It's actually gone down since this was written. It looked like it was going to rally a little bit, Nah, it's down there with the crypto now. And you can go look it up. I haven't checked it today, I'll be honest with you, but it was about $1.70, $1.68, something like that. Now the price hovers around $2, giving the company a market cap of just over $150 million. As we described it, this is the quote from the statement that our favourite CEO, Lee Trink, he's back. FaZe the fuck up. Oh, you're killing the game, son. You're killing the game, CEO Lee Trink. Killing it. Hasn't just been one dumpster fire after another, one desperate money grab after another, and then the final ultimate scam. Roll the dice on launching on the stock market and hoping you can keep this fucking house of cards from falling down for another year, another 2 years, so you can live out your deranged fucking midlife crisis man-child fantasy for a little bit longer. Perfect, mate. You're killing it. You're the CEO I want in my company, homeboy. Anyway, as we described in our Q3 announcement, FaZe is seeing strong business momentum with brands, talent, and the gaming community following our entry to the public markets, and our revenue performance and full-year expectations reflect that. Given the broader economy as well as lower than expected proceeds from the go public transaction, we are moving aggressively to manage our capital while looking at ways to enhance our balance sheet to pursue the growth opportunities in front of us. Trink declined to comment further. The third quarter financial report paints a picture of a company quickly running out of money. Because FaZe has never been profitable, it has always used outside investment to fund its operations. The mass sell-off of shares meant FaZe Holdings raised approximately $100 million in capital from the merger, less than half of the $218 million it projected last fall prior to it. As of September 30th, FaZe reports having $43.9 million in cash on hand, which is only enough to fund current operations to November 2023. These conditions have raised substantial doubt about our ability to continue as a going concern, the company said in its quarterly regulatory filing, which is dependent upon our ability to generate significant revenue and our ability to raise additional funds by way of our debt and equity financing efforts. To that end, FaZe has announced partnerships with Xfinity and the Sandbox Metaverse and a renewed deal with McDonald's in recent months, hanging its hat on 11 active sponsorships valued at over $500,000 in the first 3 quarters, up from 8 at this point last year. The primary selling point FaZe Clan will use to lure new investors and advertisers is its sprawling audience of Gen Z followers. Yeah, you love them, don't you Zoomers? You love FaZe, don't you? You're there, you're doing the thing, FaZe up, doing that. You love it, don't you? You love it. Well, here's the thing with that. But even those numbers on closer inspection, because you're a fickle bunch, you Zoomers, look less favourable for the brand. The most common statistic promoted by the company is its total reach. Spoiler, this is becoming an increasingly popular statistic. It's been there with all the big orgs and all about total reach. What this enables them to do is to basically make it look like they've got more people than they actually have. Why? How? Well, because what you say is, I've got this guy, he's got 100,000 followers. I got this guy, he's got 100,000 followers. I got this guy, he's got 200,000 followers. And I got this gal, she's got 500,000 followers. And then what you do is you presume there's no overlap anywhere in any of that, because we couldn't possibly check, and we put all of that number together and say bada bing, bada boom. Anyway, even those numbers on closer inspection look less favourable for the brand. The most common statistic promoted by the company is its total reach, the aggregate total of all FaZe members, follower counts across all social and video platforms, which comes to an incredible 526 million. That's more than all of America. Oh my God, it's so many. By comparison, that even says it, even does my bit, right? Yet nearly 200 million of FaZe's followers come from popular celebrity members like Snoop Dogg. So in other words, how many Snoop Dogg fans do you think are like really into FaZe? How many Snoop Dogg fans do you think wake up in the morning, they hit that zoot, they listen to fucking Doggy Style, wow, 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 yippee, yo, yippee, yay. They get into the fucking zone, and then they're like, you know what? I wonder what Banks is up to. I just, that's me, for real. Just like me. No, it's not, is it? It's not just like you. It's not like any Snoop fan ever in the world. Like, there's just no way, like. So, It's a shell game. It's bullshit. And also, as part of the agreement FaZe had with Snoop Dogg, they've agreed contractually they cannot directly monetize his followers. They got absolutely shafted on the deal. It's like, can we bring you in as an ambassador and a board member? For faux shizzle. I'm not doing that bit. That's fraught with peril, that bit. But he definitely probably said faux shizzle at one point. He said faux shizzle, and then you've got to give all my family stocks and shares and loads of money. And also I get an upfront fee, and no, you can't monetize any of my followers. I'll wear that stupid chain, and then and I'm never allowing you to be on my timeline ever again. This is Snoop Dogg. He did the Hip Hop Gamer League with DJ Wheat. In fact, I can't turn the TV on and not see him. He was doing the Olympics with Kevin Hart when he's been everywhere. Like on The View, you know, like for fuck's sake. And FaZe, bring him in, and could you just tweet about it's like can we maybe, I don't know, can we get a shout out on the album? Okay, no, no. Ridiculous. The remaining total is still inflated by the company's own admission, because each fan who follows multiple creators across multiple platforms, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch, for example, may be counted several times. This is how much of a nonsense stat it is. It's not even that if I follow like Banks and Rain and all of the OG FaZe homies, each time I follow them, it's going to count. If I follow Banks on his Insta, Banks on his Twitter, Banks on his Twitch, Banks on his YouTube, whatever it is, I count 4 or 5 times for that one dude, and I might follow all of them and all of the things. What a nonsense number. It's so quintessential esports as a statistic. Utterly meaningless and easily obfuscating the truth. It's perfect. It's perfect for esports. A more accurate estimate of FaZe's fan base might be its aggregate YouTube subscribers, which as of September totaled just under 136 million, although this metric would also double count any individual who subscribed to multiple FaZe-affiliated channels. Whatever the actual number is, FaZe still commands a substantial fan base. Its business struggles are indicative of an ongoing trend in the gaming industry, where top organizations, and more specifically the talent they employ, have captured large audiences online but haven't yet found a way to generate significant income from the relationships. Instead, they've relied on large outside investments. FaZe's list of early investors included celebrities like Pitbull and Offset and professional athletes like Jamal Murray. It's almost followed a tech model rather than a sports model of raising funds and working out how to monetize down the line, said Malf Mins, the managing director of esports consulting from Strive Sponsorship. Oh, really? Dude. I should have your job. Fucking been saying this for like nearly 20 years. Now the money is poured into the level where investors are now saying, okay, how are we going to see the return? And I think within the esports industry, there's still not a clear answer on that. Unlike traditional sports, esports organizations generally don't participate in the media rights contracts of esports broadcasters, and content creators are entirely dependent on third-party platforms to distribute their content. On YouTube, according to the quarterly report, the average revenue per subscriber within the FaZe network was just 36 cents. Imagine having all them fans, and the average subscriber is worth just 36 cents. Oh, cheers, mate. This is how mad it is. You make more busking. The average person who walks past you while you're playing a guitar with a rat at your feet gives you more than that. 36 cents. It's ridiculous. And I've also said this as well. Why is that? Because no one spends any money. Fans don't give you money. They just don't give you money. You can have the numbers. I've said this time and time again. People look at the numbers. So right now, I don't even know how many people I'm streaming to. Probably like over 1,000 or whatever, right? But here's the thing. I've streamed to over like 1,000 people today, but I've had like 300 subs. That is incredible generosity from my audience, from my engagement levels, you know? So it's like, it's not the raw numbers. Like if 50,000 people are watching me right now and no one gives me a penny, what's the point? I've got 50,000 fans who don't want to support me. You know what I mean? So it's like, people have never got that either. I've always said it, like, you know, for me, it's not about money, fortunately, because I've done other things. But at the end of the day, like, I know I've got a super generous community who are engaged with what I want to do and they want me to continue and blah, 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 blah. Other people just passively, like, if you're the FaZe network, how many people just passively absorb your content? They watch the video, they watch it with ad block. You know, would you buy some merch? Nah, probably not, actually. Like, you know, probably not. They probably watch about 20 or 30 other influencers from outside FaZe. They can take or leave you. This is a huge problem. This is a huge problem within esports. This is a huge problem with esports orgs and converting fans. No one buys anything. No one spends any money on merch. The well is dry. So the obvious revenue stream would be if we were like sports teams, right? Sell a shirt, sell a ticket, sell a hat, sell a cap, sell a mug, sell this, sell that. Do it all the time. You can't. You know, it's just not there. Then there's the question of how much of the 36 cents FaZe gets to keep. The percentage is negotiated on an individual basis with talent who operate as independent contractors. But in 2019, the company said the maximum amount of tournament winnings and content revenue taken by the company was 20%, which, by the way, would make FaZe one of the worst. If it was 20% of tournament winnings, you don't get a lot of that. So in other words, because I won't muddy the waters like they have there by talking about tournament winnings and all that. The 20% number means the 36 cents isn't even the cut they get. The 36 cents is what comes in, and then everyone divides that up. It's like a shit record deal. It's an important distinction on the balance sheet, the article continues. Of the $48.6 million in total revenue reported through the first 3 quarters, think on that. $48.6 million at $1 billion valued company in 3 quarters. Whatever. The company itself brought in only $14 million in 3 quarters. That's so they're spending like what they're spending, and their natural revenue stream they have direct dominion over is $14 million. On the November earnings call, new CFO Christoph Packler announced $7 million in annualized savings. Think of the savings. But the report asserts FaZe's intention for costs and expenses to increase in future periods as it moves ahead with its growth strategy, including acquisitions. This signals a need for additional funding in the near future. Selling new equity shares seems unlikely at this point, I'll say, considering their potential value has dropped more than 80% in the past few months. If we raise additional debt financing, they say, we may be required to accept terms that restrict our ability to incur additional indebtedness, force us to maintain specified liquidity or other ratios, or restrict our ability to pay dividends or make acquisitions, the quarterly report says. By the way, all of that is language for just being financially responsible. I know it sounds like, ooh, that sounds all scary. No, it's like maintain specified liquidity, don't spend more than you got, basically. Like, I know I'm really oversimplifying this stuff, so apologies. But also restrict our ability to pay dividends and make other acquisitions. So, you know, you take on some debt, but you can't use it for these things. You can't pay out dividends with that debt, etc. In recent years, being a company with designs on the future and an ambitious growth strategy operating at huge losses, like Netflix, was some paradoxical sort of recipe for success. However, FaZe launched publicly into a stock market environment where money-losing tech companies were abruptly being brought back down to earth, especially if no path to profitability could be easily explained. FaZe remains committed to its long-term vision, announcing its third quarter earnings. Trink called its talent-first model the future of entertainment, he said. The next test of that optimism will come in mid-January. It's nearly upon us. When FaZe talent, employees and owners are released from their 6-month lockup agreements as a condition of the merger, and they get their option to sell their shares. That's going to be delicious. Because, listen, all of these things, all this doom and gloom, the looming, lumbering esports recession, everyone's losing money in this space right now. You've got a fucking lockup, right, from when they floated saying, listen, we give you shares, but to help the future of the org, you can't sell them up. That's the premise behind it. So we give you equity, we give you these shares, they have value, but you can't just sell them. You can't just cash out at the start because that would hurt the overall value of the shares, potentially the company, our liquidity, blah, 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 all stuff we just talked about. So now, once that lock gets lifted, who's going to hold? Or if you're, let's say, by way of a for instance, if you're somebody like a Rain who's been publicly bellyaching about how they got ripped off by the org, and you've got some shares and they've given you those shares as a make weight, what are you going to do? You're going to offload them? If multiple big names offload their shares and people get wind of it, and remember, these transactions are, of course, traceable. If people get wind of it, the headlines it's going to generate are going to be so bad. It's going to look so bad that not even people in FaZe believe in FaZe. That's your headline right there. Ooh, going to be good. The quote that ends the article is, there's been a recognition that they're trying to build something of value and you need to invest before you can get a return, Min says. But the big question is, how much do you keep putting in before you can expect to get something out? I've just polished that up at the end for him because he says to expect to get returns. It was a bit of a crap quote. I made it way better. I'm better than you, Mins. Deal with it. So, FaZe in trouble, right? One of the biggest orgs in the whole of esports. So big with its $1 billion valuation that they're actually on the precipice of death. It's just brilliant. What does it say about our industry that the most successful, like everybody has wanted to copy the FaZe model? 100 Thieves in many ways is a copy of the FaZe model. Optic to a lesser degree, they've got their own thing, to be fair. I won't bang on them too much there. But everybody wants to copy the FaZe model. So what does it say about our industry that the FaZe model is so utterly broken that now that they're being held publicly accountable because they have floated on the fucking stock market and they can't just keep getting investment money after investment money and raises and sponsorships and obfuscating the reality about their finances, what does it tell you? That they could be bust this year. Now, I'll add, as much as I would love that to happen, that won't happen. What will happen is some shite-talk, from one of the big financial power players right now is going to look at all of the shares and how cheap they are and who's willing to do a fire sale and everything else. And the FaZe brand is likely to just get bought in terms of just people just going to buy up enough of the shares till they get a controlling interest in it. And then, it'll be everyone who sells large blocks of shares gets a temporary agreement to have a job for a little bit. You've seen this game a million times, right? So who that would be, I don't know. I don't know what value there would be in, say, for example, something like the Savvy Gaming Group buying a big influencer organization, because obviously conflict of interest, we can't stop it anymore, so that wouldn't be a consideration. Yeah, would it be bad if they owned one of the biggest orgs and one of the biggest leagues? And of course it would, but we can't stop it now. You can't stop the progress. It's too late. So possible. There's plenty of other entities. There's individuals, by the way, that might want it if they can get it cheap. Other entities, you could see a merger. You could see a more liquid esports organization could come in. It certainly wouldn't be TSM. I don't know who it would be, but you could probably see another one, kind of like when Envious merged with Optic. You could see something like that. But the bottom line is, ultimately, FaZe is in trouble. There's no two ways about that. That is not an exaggeration. They can put a brave face on it as much as they want. They can dress it up as much as they want. But the reality is that FaZe are in trouble. They're in real financial trouble. They cannot keep, you are not going to attract investors now that you're having to file publicly quarterly reports. And even if people wanted to invest, they wouldn't do it now, like prima facie. They wouldn't do it on its face. They would wait until you were weak and vulnerable so they could get more for their money. And everyone's going to know now because you've got to publicly say it. So, yeah, FaZe down. Massively, massively down. Not just their share price. This has huge ramifications. I know lots of people have been worried about what was going to happen. There was a real potential back during the Tfue thing. Had that gone to court, had some precedent been sent there about how these sports organizations are also operating like agencies. That could have brought that whole shit down, but no one's pushed that button yet in the state of California. Somebody does. You will see real problems in how American, well, particularly Californian-based esports orgs operate. So they've dodged several bullets, but this public offering has been a fucking disaster. Like, going on the stock market has been a disaster for them. There's no two ways about it. They can't dress that up. They've spent big, and I'd even go so far as to say a lot of incompetence on display for my money, which thankfully none of which was put into FaZe.